They feel you before they see you. The air thickens when you arrive. You don't try to stand out. You just do. But they'll never admit why. They whisper after you leave. They react without knowing why. And deep down, you've always sensed it. You are not like them. You never were. They called you too intense, too quiet, too much. Not realizing your silence carried storms, and your stillness made cowards uncomfortable. You were never loud, but your presence, earth-shaking. If people constantly project their fears onto you or open their hearts like you've known them forever, you don't need confirmation. You already know. Your aura is not ordinary, it's undeniable. And in this video, I'm going to show you, with zero fluff, the 5 brutal, bone-deep signs that your aura is powerful. Not social tricks, not charisma hacks, not ego games. Truth, raw, stoic, powerful truth. This is for men who don't need permission. This is for men who don't follow, because they were never built to. This isn't just a video. It's a call to remember who you are. Support this channel if you value truth and power, because every share, like, and comment makes it easier for more men like you to break out of the fog and wake up. Sign 1. Strangers open up without knowing why. There's a certain kind of presence that causes people to unburden their souls before they even understand why. A gravity that pulls truth out of others, not because you asked for it, but because you became the safest place they've encountered in a long time, and that doesn't come from being friendly or polite. It comes from building yourself into a man who carries no pretense, no judgment, no performative empathy. It comes from becoming so real within yourself that others feel seen in your presence, even when you say nothing at all, because your stillness speaks honesty in a language most people have forgotten how to understand. And when they see that you won't flinch at their scars, that you won't weaponize their vulnerability or minimize their pain, they begin to open up without prompting, like a cracked dam finally giving way after years of pressure. And the reason this happens is because you are not another mask. And so they lean in instinctively because your presence gives them permission to stop performing. And that is rare, because in a world addicted to performance, someone who has nothing to hide becomes magnetic, not flashy magnetic, but quietly commanding in the way that makes others want to confess. Not because you ask, but because you make them remember who they were before they forgot who they had to become to survive. And this isn't something you fake. This isn't a trick. This is who you become when you've faced your own shadows. To sit with someone's pain without making it about your own. And most of all, to lead with truth in a world that mistakes comfort for kindness. Because true kindness is not soft, it is honest. And honesty without judgment is the most healing force you can carry into any interaction. And if you want to deepen this gift, then ask yourself not what people are saying, but what they're hiding. Not because you need to expose them, but because you are willing to see them without needing to fix them. And that is what creates space. Space for others to stop hiding. Space for connection to form without force. Space for truth to breathe again. And you become that space when you choose to walk the road of introspection over reaction. When you choose to face your own darkness instead of projecting it. When you build a foundation so strong within that people feel held just by being near you. And it's in this space that transformation happens, not with fireworks or grand speeches, but in the quiet moments where someone finally says what they've never said aloud before and realizes you didn't flinch. And that's the moment they begin to heal. And that's the kind of power you carry when your aura is stronger than your opinions, when your listening is louder than your voice, when your essence becomes the sermon and your silence becomes the sanctuary. And the man who lives this way doesn't just inspire trust. He commands it, not by effort, but by essence. And the man who can listen without ego, hold space without fixing, and exist without needing to be the center. He becomes unforgettable, not because he says much, but because he reminds people of their own depth. And that is the rarest gift a man can give. Sign 2. You walk in and everything shifts. You walk in and everything changes. Not just the mood, but the emotional temperature of the space. Because presence isn't about volume, it's about vibration. And if you've ever noticed people suddenly becoming self-conscious, adjusting their posture, clearing their throat, or looking away as you enter, understand that you're not disrupting the energy, you're revealing it. You're not loud, but your energy is. The kind that makes people reflect, compare, measure themselves without you ever speaking a word. And this isn't arrogance, it's clarity. Clarity carved out from years of pain, solitude, discipline, and most importantly, from not needing to be liked. When a man walks into a room having fully accepted who he is, his past, his flaws, his purpose, he radiates a stillness that screams louder than attention seekers. That man doesn't flinch when challenged, doesn't fumble when tested, and doesn't bow when ignored. He's already approved himself. Want to build this aura? Then build your day with structure. Wake before you want to. Train when it's inconvenient. Speak less. Lie never. Choose quality over comfort in everything from your words to your friends to your food. And if you walk into a room and feel tension, good. That's a sign of presence. Because energy isn't neutral, it's noticed. You'll know you're growing when your silence starts creating pressure, not confusion. And the man who commands without demanding is the one who shapes the world instead of being shaped by it. Ask yourself, when you walk in, are you adapting to the noise or calming it? Are you trying to disappear into the environment or command it by simply being you? Build a life where your existence is louder than words and your presence is proof of your principles. Your aura isn't about being seen, it's about being undeniable. That's what makes rooms pause. That's what turns strangers into followers, skeptics into listeners, and empty space into opportunity. And if you've ever felt that shift when you enter, not because of attention, but because of energetic authority, lean into it, cultivate it, protect it, because that's not ego, that's power, real power, the kind no one can take because it wasn't given, it was earned. And when you realize that presence is the loudest language of power, you stop seeking to be understood and start becoming undeniable, because the world does not reward volume, it rewards weight. The weight of a man who stands firm without needing applause, who knows himself so deeply that even chaos can't move him. When your actions align with that truth, when your integrity isn't optional but foundational, people sense it, even if they can't explain it. They're drawn to it because truth is magnetic in a world addicted to performance. And you don't need a stage when you carry truth in your posture. You don't need applause when your silence delivers more authority than empty words. This is why presence has nothing to do with being extroverted or charismatic. It has everything to do with inner coherence, and coherence comes from choosing the path of discipline over the path of ease, of silence over constant justification, of doing what's right when it's lonely, instead of doing what's popular when it's comfortable. When you train your body with consistency, when your word means something, even to yourself, when you endure boredom without reaching for distraction, you cultivate depth, and depth makes your presence heavy in the best way. You stop reacting to disrespect because you're too busy respecting yourself. You stop explaining your standards because you've become them. And suddenly, your mere presence becomes a mirror people can't look into without seeing where they've fallen short. And instead of shrinking, you expand, not to overpower, but to become the invitation to rise. This is how men change rooms, by changing themselves first. by building mornings that no one sees, workouts that aren't posted, prayers that aren't public, and standards that don't bend just because the crowd chooses weakness. Every choice you make in silence becomes visible in your presence. And when people can feel your choices without needing to hear your story, you've stepped into a different realm of influence. One that doesn't need marketing, only motion. Because real power never introduces itself, it reveals itself in how others change when it arrives. Sign 3. Children and animals gravitate to you. There's something deeply primal about the way children and animals respond to energy, something ancient and beyond language that most adults have lost touch with. And if you've ever had a child smile at you without reason, or a dog walk past everyone else to sit at your feet, understand that what you're radiating isn't superficial. It's energetic truth. And unlike adults who've been taught to ignore their instincts, children and animals still feel what's real. They still sense calm in chaos, and they still run from energy that carries tension, manipulation, or threat. And when they're drawn to you, it isn't because you tried to be charming or forced connection. It's because your presence speaks safety, your body doesn't lie, and your spirit doesn't contract around theirs. And this is something you earn by becoming the kind of man who no longer hides behind roles, who no longer uses volume to replace depth, who has nothing to prove and nothing to control. Because to radiate this kind of energy, you must be empty of threat and full of internal order. And internal order is built in silence, through breath, through presence, through consistency. And when a child runs to you without knowing your name, or a cat jumps into your lap while ignoring everyone else, it's because you've become what most people have forgotten how to be, whole. And the path to that wholeness is not through faking stillness, but by healing the fractures inside you that make you reactive, dishonest, or forceful. Because animals and children don't need you to be entertaining. They need you to be grounded, and they won't trust someone whose nervousness leaks through smiles, or whose insecurity hides in loudness. And if you want to deepen this power, practice sitting in stillness with no agenda. Practice breathing through moments when you want to control something. Practice letting people be without needing to fix, impress, or manage their perception of you. And the more you can do this, the more your body begins to emit the kind of calm that makes even skittish dogs relax and hyper-toddlers slow down. And the reward for cultivating this stillness is not just that others trust you, but that you begin to trust yourself. Because presence breeds inner respect, and that self-respect shows up in every space you enter, not as arrogance, but as a natural equilibrium. And you'll notice people speaking softer around you, resting easier in your presence, and feeling safer even in silence, not because you told them to, but because energy always speaks before words. And when yours says, "I am peace, I am strength, I am here," the world listens, even those who can't yet explain why. And the beauty of this energy is that it cannot be faked or forced, because children and animals respond to the truth of who you are, not the story you tell about yourself. And this is what separates men who are merely liked from men who are trusted instinctively, because when your inner life is aligned, when your actions match your values, and when your presence carries no confusion or manipulation, even the most non-verbal beings can sense it. And if you've ever been walking through a park and a stranger's dog broke away from the leash just to sit beside you, or if a baby locked eyes with you in a store and began laughing uncontrollably without knowing your name, that's not random. It's resonance. And what you need to understand is that your aura tells a story long before you speak. And if that story is written in integrity, peace, and grounded masculinity, the world responds to it without needing an explanation. And you become the kind of man who doesn't demand trust because his presence evokes it, who doesn't ask for respect because his silence commands it. And this level of energetic clarity only comes from years of tending to your inner landscape, not avoiding the dark parts of your personality, not denying the painful memories or failures, but fully facing them, integrating them, and standing tall with nothing left to hide. And that transparency, when you're no longer running from yourself, becomes a signal to everything around you that you are safe to be around. And that signal carries power, not in the sense of dominance, but of reliability. Because the dog doesn't need your resume and the child doesn't care about your income. They care about how you feel on the inside. And if that feeling is calm, firm, and unshakable, they will naturally want to be near it. And if you want to cultivate this level of energy, then it starts with your morning, before the world pulls on you, before the noise of responsibility invades your mind. In those first few quiet minutes, ask yourself what kind of energy you want to carry into the day, and then act in full alignment with it, even when no one is watching, especially when no one is watching, because those private decisions, the way you treat yourself, the way you speak about others when they're not there, the way you show up when it's inconvenient, are what carve your presence into something undeniable. And over time, as you let go of performance and embrace presence, you'll find that life begins to respond differently, that people open up without prompting, that animals relax in your shadow, that children see in you something most grown men lost long ago, the quiet strength of a man who is not just alive, but awake, not just confident, but congruent. And that is the kind of man the world needs more of, a man who has made peace with himself, and who makes every space feel safer just by being in it. Sign 4. You don't need to talk to be heard. There is a level of presence so rare, so complete, that it commands attention without sound, a presence born not from force, but from a kind of internal order that is impossible to ignore. And when you carry this kind of aura, people feel you before they see you. They notice when you enter a room even if their back is turned, not because you made a scene, but because your stillness has mass. And the reason you don't need to talk to be heard is because your energy says everything. Your discipline, your values, your consistency, your focus, all radiate without a single word. And in a world filled with noise, those who embody quiet conviction become lighthouses, unmoved by storms, noticed by everyone without asking for it. And this kind of aura is built moment by moment, decision by decision, in the dark, in the early hours, in the boring repetitions that no one celebrates but everyone notices, in your posture, in your tone, in your calm. And if you want this kind of presence, start by writing down your goals, real goals, not vague wishes. Then break them into daily actions you can begin immediately, because clarity in vision leads to clarity in motion. And when your life is built on clear intention, your aura becomes unmistakable, and people feel it around you without knowing why they respect you, why they open up, why they feel safe. And it's not about dominance, it's about self-mastery, about being a man who doesn't just speak of purpose, but becomes it in every choice. And this requires sacrifice, patience, brutal honesty, and the refusal to betray your standards even when no one is watching. Because the man who moves in silence yet produces results speaks louder than any speech. The wise man understands that real power flows from refinement, not reaction, from alignment, not attention. And when you embody this principle, people lean in when you pause, not because they expect entertainment, but because your stillness has become rare enough to create gravity. And the way to nurture this gravity is through unbroken habits, through solitude that sharpens rather than isolates, through rituals that build your spine and not your ego. And one of the most potent practices you can adopt is the discipline of intentional stillness, sitting in silence without distraction, not to escape the world, but to master your presence in it. Because a man who can sit with his own thoughts without flinching is a man whose presence others cannot shake. And from this well of clarity rises an energy that others describe as intimidating. Every micro decision either contributes to the signal of your aura or dilutes it. And when your inner alignment becomes precise, your energy begins to operate like a compass for others, subconsciously. Drawing people who are seeking clarity, stability, and depth, and the most powerful men aren't the ones who talk about being grounded. They're the ones who walk into a room and instantly become its anchor, not because they try to, but because they are incapable of being anything else. And that is the ultimate goal of true self-mastery, to live in a way where your very existence offers direction, and not because you ask to lead, but because your integrity made it impossible for others not to follow. Sign 5. People remember you long after you're gone. There's a certain type of man who never needs to raise his voice to be remembered, whose name stays in people's minds long after the conversation ends, not because he said something clever or wore something bold, but because who he was couldn't be ignored. And this kind of lasting impact doesn't come from charisma or charm. It comes from depth, from alignment, from the kind of inner consistency that makes others feel something they can't explain. And that's why months after you've left the room, someone still thinks about the way you made them feel. Not because you tried to impress them, but because you were fully there, and in a world where most people only half show up. The man who shows up with complete attention, complete presence, complete integrity becomes unforgettable. And what's even more powerful is that this presence doesn't shout. It lingers, not in memory alone, but in influence. Because when you've built yourself to carry peace into chaos, clarity into confusion, and honesty into environments that are used to performance, you disrupt the atmosphere without needing to cause a scene. People feel valued in a way they don't forget, and what they remember isn't always what you said. It's how you made them feel safe, seen, and unjudged. And when you can do that without needing anything in return, you become rare, and what is rare becomes unforgettable, not by effort, but by essence. And if you've ever been told, "I don't know why, but I remember you," understand that's no accident. It's the consequence of living in coherence, of walking through life as someone who has done the inner work. And the real value you offer others is not what you do. It's what you invite them to realize within themselves, simply by being the living embodiment of it. And when your presence becomes permission for others to be real, you've stepped into the highest form of silent influence a man can hold. I'm putting together the most powerful step-by-step relationship guide ever created for men. The men who walk with real aura don't force the world to listen. The world leans in because they carry something it rarely sees. Depth without noise, strength without aggression, clarity without compromise. Your aura is not just energy, it's evidence. Evidence of your decisions, your habits, your pain, your triumphs. It tells the world what kind of man you are before your mouth ever opens. If this spoke to you, if any part of your soul recognized what I'm saying, don't keep this to yourself. Support this mission by subscribing, sharing, and helping us push this message deeper into the world. You're not just backing a video, you're helping men remember who they are.